I want to focus on a part of the Parsha this morning that our bar mitzvah didn't talk about. But first, I think I want to acknowledge, maybe it's the end of the school year, and the idea that so many children are just ready to be done with this routine and get to summer. I don't know if your homes are anything like mine, and I'm sure my children here are going to be very upset that I say this and share this. But every morning we sort of tiptoe around during breakfast, not sure if our children are going to have smiles on their face, be excited to start the day, or be very grumpy and tired at us, at each other. And often breakfast, as we start that hurried routine to get out of the house and get to the bus, ends up with one sibling yelling at another sibling, and then we force them to hug and make up and say you're sorry, but it's one of those sort of like, sorry, as siblings sometimes say to each other, even though we know that they love each other. They may not say it in the moment. And I think about that in relationship to the sibling dynamic we see in this week's Parashat between Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Because it's this odd dynamic between these three siblings that are never really in the narrative together. We see parts of Exodus in which there's Miriam and Moses, and parts of Exodus in which there's Moses and Aaron, and parts in which there's Aaron and Miriam, but this is really the first time that we see the dynamic between the three of them. And in Behaalotecha, we find the well-known story that leads to the rabbinic understanding of how Lashon Hara is the worst of mitzvot, the spreading ill will and gossip and talking about another person, and how that's the cause of tzara'at, this skin ailment that we first find in the book of Leviticus. Because what happens in our Parsha is that Aaron and Miriam are talking about Moses and his wife behind their backs, and then all of a sudden the rabbis say, as punishment, Miriam gets this tzara'at, gets this scaly white skin ailment. Yet, when Moshe hears of this skin ailment, when he sees his sister in pain, in suffering, when he sees somebody that hurt him so badly, he doesn't say, good. She deserves it. She deserves to be in pain because she caused me to be in pain. Rather, the Torah tells us he turns to God and says, El na refana la. Words of prayer that we sang during the Misha Berach. Please, God, heal her. The book of Deuteronomy ends with the death of Moses and clearly states, Lo kam navi od b'Yisrael kamoshe, that never again does a prophet rise up in all of Israel quite like Moshe, because it says, Asher yado Adonai panim el panim, that he was able to see God face to face, whatever that means, giving God these human characteristics. And so we're left wondering, what does it mean when the Torah ends that nobody ever came around again like Moses? What made him this great prophet, as the Torah says? Because the truth is, he wasn't such a great leader. He was a reluctant leader. He had Aaron speak for him. He complained to God all the time that the Israelites weren't listening to him and would say time and time again, find somebody else. In fact, he lost his cool as a leader. We find in a couple of weeks when he hits the rock instead of talks to the rock, as the people were again complaining that they were thirsty, he says, Shimuna hamorim, listen up, you idiots. He loses his cool and temper so much so that the rabbis say that that is the reason that he can't enter the promised land. So then what made him so great, as the Torah says? We see right before he asked God to heal Miriam, in Bamidbar in Numbers chapter 12, verse 3, the Torah tells us, Va'ish Moshe anav me'od, mikol adam asher al panei adama. That Moses was extremely humble, more so than any person on earth. The Midrash and the Sifri asks, what does it mean that he was humble? It says he was even more humble than our biblical patriarchs. And they explain that humility is exemplified by this exact moment. By when he feels pain because of something that somebody else did to him. He doesn't respond with retribution or revenge, doesn't seek to cause her pain, and instead sees her in pain and says, please help her. Please heal her. That's the humility that the Torah is talking about. He saw God face to face, the Torah says. What does that mean? That he was able to look into the eyes of another person. And even in his own anger and frustration, see God within their face and not want them to be in pain. Not want them to experience pain and suffering, even if he did. He saw God in humanity. Not just seeing God in those who agreed with him, as most Israelites didn't. Not just seeing God in those who praised him, but seeing God in those who hurt him. And that, the rabbis say, is what makes him more humble than anybody else in the land. And that's ultimately our challenge, what we strive for. To say, El na rafana la, not may God heal those in need, yes. But to actually understand, to be humble enough, prophetic enough like Moses, to say that we don't want others who caused us pain to experience pain and suffering. We just don't want to experience pain ourselves because there's too much pain and suffering. And more pain doesn't take away the pain that we feel. Moses realized that the skin ailments Miriam had didn't make him feel any better, that people were talking about him and his wife behind their back, hurting them, slinging insults. He understood that not to perpetuate a broken world, but to build a better world. We need to say a lot more of El Na Rafan Allah, to see those who are in pain, who may have caused us pain, and turn to God and say, help them, heal them, make them better so that we can make this world better.